Welcome to Purple Coach Conversations with Anne and Tanya. Our goal is to normalize, educate, and inspire conversations around diversity and inclusion. We are both coaches, mother, and entrepreneur. We are not diversity experts, but we aim to have conversations with people that will have something interesting and unique to say about their journey and experience in diversity and inclusion.
Today, we're joined by a special guest all the way from the US, Candis. And so Candis lives in sunny Florida in the US, and she's originally from Australia. Candis Hickman is the founder of Captivating Coach. She's a coach herself and helps coaches create their signature programs. She runs masterclasses, shares resources, and support on a group of individual basis. So, Candis, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and introduce yourself to our viewers, please?
Yeah, I would love to. And I love that you actually have this podcast around diversity and inclusion, because I think that's so important. So thanks for inviting me to be here. So the work that I do really is centered around people, helping people to get clear on who they are, what they have to offer, and how to communicate it in a way that's resonant. And so that's been the heart of my work for the last couple of years. It's really around helping us to define what our unique contributions are to the world, how to actually package those contributions up, and then how to share them in a way that inspires other people to act. And so, I've worked with a range of different leaders and entrepreneurs over the last couple of years. And the Captivating Coach is actually a brand new program. I know that you mentioned that. It's a brand new program that's specifically anchored by coaches and people that actually have this desire to do impactful work, because over the years, I've realized that my heart really is geared towards those that want to create positive, meaningful impact in the lives of the people around them.
That's really interesting. And thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's such important work that you do, getting other people to live their authentic life by finding, what's their true gift? What is it how can you change the world with whatever you're blessed with, whatever talents and gifts you're blessed with, and packaging it in a way that is clear and very easy to kind of understand for their potential clients as well.
Yes.
As we all know, there's a lot of noise out there, not really understanding what you're doing. So thank you for sharing that, Candis.
Yes, especially I echo Anne as well. And I find that there's a lot of, we know that there's a lot of coaches out there. It's a overcrowded profession, but I find that it's so important, and you have fantastic people out there, and you're one of them. Like when you find someone who truly wants to understand what you have to offer, because we're very much surrounded by this masculine energy in some way, that you have to sell, you have to kind of use ads and to be in front of your client also constantly and all that, but it doesn't always lead to success. First, you've got to really understand what you're going to offer that is actually different. So it's very relevant in today's world of coaching, because you have to actually differentiate yourself and understanding exactly what you have to offer. And that's why I've always been attracted to what you have to offer as a coach yourself. So I know we'll be in touch for a long time. So Purple Coach Conversation, as you know, is to share unique journeys about diversity and inclusion and topics around that. And you grew up in Australia, in a predominantly white area, before moving to the US. So we'd like to hear about also the kind of your journey and how you kind of drove away from Australia to live. I'm not saying as a person, but just drove away to live in the US. And what was your experience, in Australia and here as a mixed race person?
Yeah. Well, look, my drive to move to America was actually my first solo trip to the US was actually inspired by this desire to understand where I came from, my Black roots, right? So I grew up, like you said, in this predominantly white area. My parents are still together, right? So I grew up in a family with a Black dad and a white mother. And so I had some exposure, obviously, to Black culture, but I never knew my external family, you know, my dad's side of the family. I never grew up around any of them. And there was something always in my spirit that was deeply curious about, like, you know, what is Blackness. I was that kid that growing up in Australia as a biracial person, Black biracial, you're constantly conscious of the fact that there's something different about you, right? There's something that means that you might not quite fit in, but you're not really sure what it is, right? Because you're witnessing your white mother, and but I knew within me that there was something that was different, right? I knew that there was this aspect of my life and of my identity that I didn't understand. So I actually came to America the first time on a quest to understand my Black ancestry. And I was traveling around through the US when I met my husband, and we got engaged and married, and that is a whole other story. But I migrated to America because I got married. But that kind of stemmed from this idea of trying to understand where I came from, and understand more about this aspect of me that I knew made me different. I was searching for that belonging and that understanding.
And how did it go in terms of was it as you expected? Did you have any expectations, first of all? And if you had those expectations, were you disappointed or surprised, or what was happening?
Yeah, you know what? It was disappointing, to be really frank. Because I came to America and I just, I always wanted to, I think my desire to understand my Black roots and be connected to my Black family came from this idea that I was going to find a culture that I really fit with, that, even though I got along and I was comfortable, and I've always been kind of comfortable in my own skin, that I was going to find this place that I really belonged, and that I was going to be fully embraced because I just found my people, right? And I think that that's always the search for someone that's biracial. You're always trying to reconcile these two identities within yourself. You're really trying to find the place where you belong. And I came to America and I went to my Black family thinking that I'm going to find that. And at the same time, while that family, embraced me, I was always still, I'm the foreign. Oh, this is my, I'm like a mascot, this is my, or what are they, the little kids when they do their teachers, when they show their little, what is it called? When the kids demonstrate, when they show, what is that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's a
mascot. Isn't it a mascot? Like you said, I like that.
Bring your pet to school day. It felt like, that's what I am. People are fascinated. Oh, look at her. She's this, pretty little light skin thing. And they would touch my hair and go, pretty little weave, pretty little weave. I didn't even know what a weave was, right? The accent, so there was still, I came here thinking, and I was still very conscious of the fact that I'm not the same. Right, there's still something that's different about me. And I thought that I was going to find it when I came here. So it was disappointing in that. I mean, I think that in terms of kind of solidifying this belief within me that I am different, right? I think that helps you to, that recognition or understanding that there is something different about you is actually empowering to some degree, but it didn't help with this idea of where do I belong?
I think that's so powerful. When you talk, and especially, for someone who's biracial, the concept of belonging and where do I belong, where do I fit in, and we've spoken about this before, and you mentioned, and I found it's really interesting, that the difference between race and culture and the concept of belonging to a particular race or culture is quite different. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually spoke to a friend of mine this morning who's also biracial, and we were just talking about this again. It seems to come up a lot for me recently. And she is Black. She's biracial, but she very much presents as a Black person. But she actually is Black and Mexican and was raised with her Mexican mother around her Mexican family. And so really identifies culturally as more Mexican. And so, this concept of like culture versus race, I think that a lot of the times we just think because of, this historic caste system and all of that, we kind of think that we are going to fit in with people that just look like, that we think we should look like, or we think that the construct of race is what ties us to people. And I think that it's important to recognize that sometimes culturally, like in this case of my friend, she said, well, do you mean, she's like, are people, do you mean, am I Black like by race, or am I Black culturally, right? Like, and she even said that this morning. Well, but like culturally, I don't feel like I'm Black. I didn't grow up with like around Black family. And that was something that was really interesting for me, because through my exploration of biracial identity, I've tried to understand it from a lot of different angles, right? Like I've tried to understand the historical context of my Blackness. Like we all have a different, as Black people, we all have a different history, right? The history for me, my ancestors were African American, right? So understanding the historical context of my reality, which is, I was Black, right? Like this mixed race, biracial stuff. I would have been, I was a Black person. I'm just as much as a slave. I might have been a slave in the house, but have a similar fate, right, to you. But, but then there's this other aspect of belonging that I also have to deal with. There's this other aspect of, people looking at you and being like, well, but you have privileges, right, because of the color of your skin, even though, you might be in the similar situation to me, the lightness of your skin puts you in a different position. And so like sociopolitically and historically understanding the context of what it actually means to be in this body, it like has been very important for me. But then also recognizing that even though, racially, I might be one way and have the fate of people that have a similar experience to me, culturally, that doesn't make me African American. And I came here thinking, because my dad's African American, because my ancestors are African American, that I'm going to find my belonging. And when I got here, feeling as though not only were they recognizing me as different, but culturally I am different. And it wasn't until recently I had a friend of mine who is biracial, but was raised, actually, he was adopted and raised by two Black parents, and was raised in this country, he's raised in America. He said to me, Candis, you Black, sis, but you aren't African American. And that was like a breakthrough for me, because I'm like, well, if my dad's African American, I'm African American. But he's like, there's a whole culture to being African American, right? There's a whole reality to that you maybe don't understand because you weren't raised here. And that was really kind of like, oh, that makes sense as to why this I thought I would be connected through race, but culture in this case was a stronger factor.
That's a wow moment. I think what you just said. And when you were talking, I kept finding similarities with just the principle of confidence, right? We keep chasing and wanting to become more confident, but we never get 100% confident. We always have to tackle our self-doubt, even if we practice, we prepare, and we work on our self-doubt, etc. So it's kind of accepting that in this world, we will feel very confident at times. We might not feel confident. And I find a lot of similarities in trying to kind of feeling that we belong somewhere when we are from different countries, or when we are race-wise, I'm not able to speak for you, but I'm thinking that way as well, and kind of understanding that it's about developing your own sense of belonging, and then from there, on a daily basis, having to kind of face the challenges of this, not just your self-doubt, but external challenges as well, of people who might say certain things that might also destabilize you. But as long as you have a true sense of self, and that can be, you know, I'm Australian, but my background is African American, so I'm also that. And just, it's your own kind of confidence, it's your own sense of self. So I found kind of a lot of similarities with that. And I'm curious to hear more about the challenges that you've been facing yourself, those external challenges, being mixed race in the US. Could you tell us a bit more about those challenges?
Yeah. Oh man, there's just like so many stories that I don't know that necessarily I would describe them as challenges, just because of the way that I think perceive and approach life. But you know, like recently, for example, I actually only started to really explore what it meant to be biracial in this country about a year ago. And it was right before the events of the murder of George Floyd and Amy Cooper and Christian Cooper in New York, you know, in the park. And I had realized that in the context of this, I felt unstable. One thing about me is that I'm a builder, right? And I believe in building from solid foundations. It's the heart of like the work that I do. And I had this moment where I realized, how can I really speak about this aspect of becoming known to others and to yourself if I don't explore this racial and cultural identity, because this feels so present for me in my life. And I started looking around as well. And I noticed that in my industry, all the people that are in positions that are really succeeding, that are big coaches, that are, you know, have huge followings, that are, you know, blowing up on YouTube in the self-development industry and all of this, they're all white. Even yesterday, I was like doing some research and I was looking for women of color, like YouTubers that are women of color in the self-development space. And like, all the big YouTubers that are Black are talking about like beauty, or like not many people in this industry. And so I actually started exploring, I was triggered to explore identity because I actually started thinking, who hears me? Who resonates with my work? Right? You know, you hear Black women and they're like often targeting their work at other Black women. And I was like, well, you know, like, can I say that I'm Black in this country? Because my whole life I used to tell people I'm Black only because I recognized that I was different. But can I do that in this country? Like, I don't know if people are going to accept that. You know, so I felt like, well, I don't know that I can start speaking to Black women, but nobody that looks like me seems to be doing big things in this in the industry that I'm in. So like, who is going to hear me? Who is going to resonate? And that's what actually spurred me to go into this exploration of my own identity, because it's something that I had never done. And so I started releasing kind of videos over the course of several months around mixed race identity and biracial identity. And, you know, I don't have a big channel by any stretch, but most of the subscribers that actually found me came through this exploration of mixed race identity. And then a couple of months ago, in February, I was asked to sit on a panel, it was about Black women and resilience for Black History Month. And I had this moment of like complete, I would say it was a lack of confidence, and it was confusion around whether or not I was actually worthy enough, Black enough to sit on this panel. So you understand that Black History Month in this country, it actually used to be called Negro Week, right? So it's actually African American history. It's not Black history. And we also understand that Black people come from all different parts of the world. Like Black people aren't just African American, right? But in this country, Black History Month is African American history. And I kind of was like, well, I don't know if I should sit on this board, on this panel. And then I decided, you know what? I was invited to, like, Dad's African American, like, I'm just going to do it. And while I was sitting on the panel, there was a Black man in the audience, and we were talking about funding. They were talking about investing and funding for programs, because it was for women in entrepreneurship. And he goes, he had a question, and he said, and he typed in the chat, do biracial people feel comfortable taking funding from Black programs? And then he said, full-time Nubians want to know. Okay. He said, full-time Nubians want to know. This was on a panel that was meant to celebrate, right, women in business. This was a panel that, you know, the entire audience were white and Latina women. And he was literally the only man there. And he was a Black man. And, you know, like, I immediately felt, I could feel myself feeling defensive and just like, wow, I can't believe I'm being asked this. And I essentially said, yes, like, why wouldn't we, right? Like, our, you know, these programs are designed to support Black people, and in many ways are to, an attempt to kind of rectify the sins of the past, right? Like, and so we're all impacted and affected. I have also, you know, struggled to find my place, and to, I'm not at a level playing field with white people in this world. And so, you know, like, but I was defensive, right? Because that's another case where you feel like, oh my gosh, here I am. These are my people. And then you have some people, not all, that are then rejecting you from there. So then you're just sitting out here on your own. And this has been the biggest, I think, challenge, is like, I've never had a problem standing out. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, how do I stand out? I've never had a problem standing out. In fact, if anybody's listening right now and you have an African-American father, an Australian mother, like, you know, I love it, because I've never met anybody other than my brother with the same combat. So the experience, and I'm sure there are, but I don't know any. And so this experience of who I am, you know, and my unique journey, I actually don't know, you know, I know plenty of biracial people, but I don't know any people with the same mix as that I have. And I've never had problems standing out, but I've always had problem fitting in. And, you know, people go to me, well, Candis, like, why would you want to fit in? And it's easy to say when you fit in, right? It's easy to say because everyone's like fighting to stand out. And they're like, but you naturally stand out. But like, I tell you what, not to be like a woe is me, but it's just a whole other thing that you deal with, right? It's like just like a Black person that goes into a white organization where they're the only Black person, right? You're trying to fit in, right? Like, but then imagine that, like, we're standing out here, and okay, well, I'm going to go over here, but I know I don't quite fit in. So then I'm going to go over here, but wait, like, I thought I was going to fit in with them, but now they're telling me that I'm not a part of them, right? When oftentimes, not always, I understand the privileges that I have, right? As a foreign person in America, and also as a light-skinned person, I've used my privileges, right, in the past to provide safety to my family. You know, I've used my privileges to get us off like we got stuck on mountains to get us off the mountain. I think I told you that story recently. And so, but yeah, it's just the challenge, I think, is it's belonging. It's like wondering who's going to resonate with what you have to say. It's knowing that you stand out, but wondering if you can fit in.
Yeah. That's oh, sorry, Anne, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I think it's what you just said is really fascinating, because which is actually my kind of touches on to the next thing that I was going to talk to you about, was the concept of acceptance, and acceptance as a biracial person, both from the white community and the Black community, and navigating that purely from a racial perspective as opposed from a cultural perspective. Because I think from a cultural perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you'd identify more as Australian from a cultural perspective. But from a race perspective, that's where the challenge, let's say, that and what you've been battling with as a biracial person comes in. And I know it's not as clear cut as one or the other, but if you were to say, if there was one particular race that you felt more acceptance, and it's not about picking one or the other because you felt, it's not about putting any race down, but I'm just curious from your perspective where you have experienced more of an acceptance as you.
That's a loaded question, because when you said that, my first reaction was like, oh, the Black community, 100%. It's actually an interesting, the thing about the white culture is that many people that I've come into contact are completely oblivious, right, to the impact that race will have. Around my whole life, I always felt different. I always felt like, well, the white boys aren't interested in me. Like I'm not, I never felt, right, like I was a part of the community in a way that like, I'm like you. I was always like, but I'm different. But I think that came from a lack of awareness or an ignorance to the presence of race, because white people just don't talk about it quite as much, maybe more now, but it was like uncomfortable a topic, especially in Australia, to talk about this concept of race. So I've always been embraced and loved, I think, by the white community, and I've never had a white person in my immediate circle that I've felt has rejected me as a result of my race. That has happened to me in the Black community, right? And so from that standpoint, the white people around me, I think, have embraced me in a way that I don't think that they're even conscious sometimes, from my own experience, of how this color or anything actually has impacted the way that I've moved through life, or all my thought process or anything.
I find that absolutely fascinating because, I think we touched on this previously as well, that a lot of Black people will call mixed race people Black. But it's very interesting that then from your own circle of family that you've experienced more of a, you're not quite us. Because from a racial, I'm not saying everyone in your family, obviously, but I think for me anyway, it's just an interesting perspective to see as well, that because I'll be very honest with you, if I was mixed race, I would automatically assume that my acceptance would naturally come more from the Black community, because as Black people, no matter where you are, if people are mixed race, you tend to say they're Black.
Yes.
So it's interesting to hear that perspective of what you've just shared. I'm just looking at the time now, and I'm aware of just trying to keep it to the promised time. So we do let you go in time as well. So we're just going to move on to just one of the last questions that we have. And what we'd like to do is we like to leave our guests with something useful and interesting as well that can help them in their own journey of learning and understanding, and just something inspiring for them as well. So we ask our guests to share any kind of books or people that you think would be of interest to follow or read. And I'm sure you've got a lot, given your journey so far. Can you give us a couple of examples of people you think or books that you think are of interest?
Yeah, well, on the topic of race, caste, the origins of our discontent, it's a really powerful book. really just well researched, well written, really helps you to kind of understand not just the history of the US, but also how kind of the caste systems operate in different countries. And so that's a really great book. One of my favorite books actually that I've read recently is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, because it's just such a, just a really great storytelling. It provides an understanding of what it means to be like how all these kind of races and cultures converge. And so I found it for both like educational and interesting. The Color of Water is another book that I'm reading right now, which is about Black man's tribute to his white mother, which is interesting, like resonating as a Black man with a white mother. So those are just like a couple of books, I think, that if you're curious about exploring this topic of like being biracial, that are some good options.
Awesome. We're definitely going to put all of those, all the links to these in the show notes for sure. And I feel like I don't know if that's something you'd be open for, but I feel like it'd be fantastic to kind of revisit and speak maybe in 6 months or something, because you're going through like such an interesting time where you're kind of doing work on yourself and you're doing all this interaction. And I know we almost at the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd. And it's kind of, it would be interesting to see, you know, in 6 months' time, what other discoveries you've made about yourself and the interactions you've had. Because I have a feeling, you know, these will change and evolve from where you are today. So I don't know if you'd be open for this, but we would love that and make sure that we do a second interview with you. I mean, this is the first time I've had the desire really to kind of not finish the interview and carry on, and you know, so we will do that again for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, thank you so much. I wanted also to tell our audience how they could connect with you. We're going to put the links, but what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can, you know, if you're hello@candishickman.com, you know, if you want to reach out directly about anything in particular, that's my email. But my website is just candishickman.com, and pretty much it links to everything that you could possibly, I think, want to know about me, just from that site there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Candis, for being part of Purple Coach Conversation. It means the world to us. Make sure you connect with Candis and follow her, and register to our Facebook group, Purple Coach Conversation. Check our website for other awesome interviews that we've done before as well, and continue following us. Thanks everybody for your support. Thanks, Candis. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. Thank you.